Indeed, like every generation of Americans throughout our history, we too face the question, will this nation, founded upon freedom, continue to flourish? Will it continue to extend the hope of liberty to all the world? It's my belief that in the last 6 years, we've done much to restore our nation, restore our economy and defenses, restore our basic values, even restore a sense of our own fundamental goodness as a people. Yes, I feel certain that despite all the challenges that beset us, this nation of freedom will flourish. But if we're to succeed in the future, we must first learn our own past. We must learn to go to a building like this and hear the echoes and sense the greatness and draw strength. For to study American history is, in a sense, to study free will. It is to see that all our greatness has been built up by specific acts of choice and determination. And it is to see how very fragile our nation is, how very quickly so much that we cherish could be lost. All this is really a more elaborate way of repeating what I said at the beginning, that by doing so much to bring American history to life, each of you is making a weighty gift to the nation, and especially to our young people. And so, let me repeat too the other remark I made a moment ago. My friends, I thank you, and God bless you all.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and happy President's Day. Thanks for joining us for our all-virtual President's Day event. We know you have a lot of choices today, and we really appreciate you joining us and participating in this virtual event. So by joining us today, what are you going to see? Well, our program includes remarks by one of President Reagan's military aides, Steve Chilander. We have music from the Los Angeles Police Department Band, and we have presidential trivia with our Abraham Lincoln lookalike. We want to also encourage you to go to our website, reaganlibrary.com/events. Go to our President's Day page, and there you can view, print, and download arts and crafts and activities for even more family fun today. So before we get started, just a little bit of President's Day trivia. Did you know that it started in 1885 as a way to recognize and thank President George Washington? Of course, now it is a day to celebrate all presidents, U.S. presidents, past and present. And of course, it's celebrated on the third Monday of February each year. Now, since the library opened in 1991, we have held a President's Day event here on our hilltop, and normally we get upwards of 5,000 people on our campus, arts and crafts and picnic games and presidential lookalikes and live music. But of course, with COVID the way that it still is, it's not something we can do, but we had to bring this event to you. We just love doing it, so we went all virtual. So again, thank you so much for joining us, the program. We think you're going to enjoy it, so let's get started. It's now my honor to introduce the beginning of the program, which includes an honor guard. It includes the Pledge of Allegiance by two troop members, Eagle Scouts from Troop 1633 out of Simi Valley, and the singing of our national anthem.
Detail. Hood. Carry. Colors. Two. Right. Face. Forward. March. Left, 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 right, left, 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 left. March on, march. Detail, hope. Left, face. Present. Colors.
All those in civilian clothes, place your right hand over your heart. All active and retired military, hands salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Three, cover. Two.
Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be speaking to you on this President's Day 2021. And just by way of quick introduction of who I am, I pinch myself every day when I get a chance to speak about President Reagan. And I wonder sometimes if people think, well, who are you to get a chance to speak about him? And so just a real quick rundown on what we are, or what I was. I was given the opportunity to work for President Ronald Reagan in the capacity of military aide to the president. I was one of 5 military aides that were there at the time. There's one military aide with President Reagan, or any president, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anywhere the president is in the world. We are responsible briefly for carrying the football. We were basically the emergency actions officer for the President of the United States. I was very, very blessed to have been given that opportunity. There were 19 military aides that served President Reagan during his 8 years as president, and I was fortunate enough to be one of those. As a military aide, and you're in very close proximity to the president a lot of the time. And that means you're around him when he's conducting business, when we're traveling, when he's at the ranch, when we're at Camp David, any of those times. And so I'd like to get into a little bit of that as we talk here. I've got just a brief time with you. I can't tell you every story that I know, but I will try to move through it as quick as I can. A couple things I'd like to refer to is some things that have been written, some things that I wrote about my experience with President Reagan. But the way I like to start is every president is unique, of course, but there was just something special about the man, Ronald Reagan. Yet even people who knew Ronald Reagan well often had difficulty describing him. Optimistic, but not naive. Articulate, but not glib. Intelligent, yet guided by common sense. That's a big one. Well-mannered, but never pretentious. Friendly, but not a pushover. Charismatic, but real. Principled, but not intransigent. And I think this kind of characterizes it all right here. He was all of that and so much more. Perhaps the key to understanding Ronald Reagan is to realize his 2 defining characteristics. He genuinely liked people, and he was comfortable with who he was. And I think those are the 2 biggest characteristics about him that I can say, and all of the experiences I've had around him and around the presidency, those are the 2 big things. He was very comfortable in his skin, and he genuinely liked people, and he sought people out. He always had time for you. He never sloughed people off. He would always seek people out. A couple stories that I will tell along the way. President Reagan really liked to go to Camp David, but one of the things he said to us as military aides, he knew we had to be with him all the time. And he told us that if you have to be with me 24 hours a day, and you have to be with me when I'm at Camp David and so forth, he said, and you're leaving your families, I would invite you to bring your families to Camp David. And so we always got to, when we had the duty and we went to Camp David, we got to bring our families up there. My wife, I had 2 daughters at the time. My wife would take the daughters out of school. They would drive up to Camp David, go through all the security checks, and be escorted down to the cabin that we stayed in. And then I would come in on the helicopter with the president. Later in the day, the president and Mrs. Reagan. We would get them situated in their cabin, and then I would go and spend the weekend with my family. Of course, in duty status the whole time I was up there. But the reason I bring this up is to point out this affinity that President Reagan had for people. Many times during the weekend, our children would be out playing and using some of the facilities that were there that were put in there by other presidents. For instance, there was a bowling alley that was put in there, I'm told, by Richard Nixon. There was a swimming pool that was put in by President Gerald Ford. Golf greens that were put in by President Eisenhower. Several of them put things in there. President Kennedy and his family put in playground swing sets and those kind of things for children because they had young children at the time. And so we used all those facilities, but they always went to the swing set and to the playground. And I bring that up because every time we'd go down there, I'd be down there with my wife and the 2 kids, and they're playing and having a great time. And President and Mrs. Reagan may go out for a walk. And if they'd be walking around Camp David, and as soon as the president would see us over on the swing sets, he would come off the walking path and go straight to the playground. And he would always come over and sit with my 2 daughters and talk to them and tell them stories. He always had time to do that. But that's the characteristic of President Reagan. my favorite stories. A lot of times we'd leave the White House grounds and we'd walk over to the old executive office building where there was an area that you've seen the president speak from many times. It's on the 4th floor of the old executive office building, and it's off the campus. So I would always go in uniform, carry the football, and accompany the president up to make that speech. Well, when you got in the old executive office building, there was an elevator that was being held open by a Secret Service agent. And this one time we rounded the corner, the doors open, they're expecting the president to just go in the elevator so that we can go up to the 4th floor. Well, the president stopped. There was a female Secret Service agent just right in front of him that was accompanying him as part of her post for the day. And he stopped and he put out his hand and he said, "After you," gesturing for her to go into the elevator first. And she explained, "Mr. President, this is my post, and I can't, leave my post. You should go in the elevator first, and then I will follow you." And he explained again. He said, "Well, no, I would like you to please, after you." And so she explained it again one time, and he said, he looked at her and he said, "Well, you're still a lady, after you." And there was another agent there, John Barletta, who you may have heard of. He was the Secret Service agent that rode horses with President Reagan, became friends with him also. But John Barletta shouted out, he said, "Karen," to the female agent, he said, "get in the elevator, because if you don't, we're not going anywhere." And so she ended up getting in the elevator, President Reagan right behind him, and up we went. So that's the kind of man that President Reagan was. Ever the gentleman, always had time for people, and so forth. One day, the president had surgery on his nose to remove a skin cancer. And after that surgery, they put a little skin colored Band-Aid on his nose, but you could still kind of see it. And he was a little self-conscious of that. Well, this one day, we were all 5 military aides in our office at the same time, which was very unusual. Usually we were out doing trips and advances and so forth. But we're all in the office at the same time. So I get the bright idea, because we're always, President Reagan and I were a lot alike in that we liked to joke. We practical joked, and he did the same, and he always is telling jokes. So I said to the other aides, I said, "Let's go over to the Oval Office and make the president feel a little bit better about having that Band-Aid on his nose." And so we all put our uniform on. We all went over to the Oval Office together. And before we went into the Oval Office, we all put a piece of white adhesive tape across our nose. And so then the Secret Service opened the door of the Oval Office. There stood the president. He looked at us and he says, "Well, you got to get in here. We got to have a picture of this." He was just having a great time with it. He thought it was funny. He enjoyed it. And we stood in front of the portrait of George Washington in the Oval Office and took a picture with all 5 of us military aides. I leave you with a couple of things. The first thing is, character is how you act when no one is looking. And I learned that again from my time with Ronald Reagan. And I say often when I speak to audiences about my time with him, my life changed just because of my experience with him. I felt I was strong of character before I got there, but I was really strong of character and modeled my life after Ronald Reagan for the rest of the time that I've been on this earth. And he always had time for people. He loved people. One of the things that was my favorite saying that he always told me, it doesn't matter if it's the janitor that cleans your office, or if you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or the head of state of a big country, everybody deserves the same respect and dignity as a human being. That was Ronald Reagan. That's the way I try to live my life. And if I could give you any advice going forward, that would be the advice I'd give you. Live your life with character. Have time for your fellow man. Be a good person and always work hard. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you on President's Day about my favorite human being, and that is President Ronald Reagan. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone, here we go. 1, 2, 1.
President Lincoln read the text of the Emancipation Proclamation, a document declaring that in the rebel states, all Americans, whatever their color, should be, thenceforward and forever, free. This is Lincoln's greatest lesson, this lesson in liberty. He understood that the idea of human liberty is bound up in the very nature of our nation. He understood that America cannot be America without standing for the cause of freedom. He had often asked himself, Mr. Lincoln once said, what great principle or idea it was that held the Union together for so long. It was not, he said, the mere matter of the separation from the motherland. It was something more. It was, quote, something in that Declaration of Independence giving liberty not alone to the people of this country, but hope to the world. It was that which gave promise that in due time the weights should be lifted from the shoulders of all men.
When did Abraham Lincoln give the Gettysburg Address?
I gave one of the most famous speeches in America, November 19th, 1863. And it went like this. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But to a larger extent, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men living and dead who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or to detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
What does 77 years ago mean?
A score is another way of saying 20. So I was referring to 1776, which was 87 years before 1863. I was declaring that the United States would continue to fight to preserve the nation that was created by the founding fathers who wrote the Declaration of Independence in 1776.
When was the White House Rose Garden established?
The White House Rose Garden was established in 1913 by Ellen Louise Axon Wilson, the wife of Woodrow Wilson. In 1935, President Franklin D. Roosevelt commissioned Frederick Lowe Olmsted to redesign the garden, and he installed cast iron furniture pieces.
How big is the Rose Garden at the White House?
The White House Rose Garden is a garden bordering the Oval Office and the West Wing of the White House in Washington, D.C. The garden is approximately 125 feet long and 60 feet wide.
When did President Reagan make his famous tear down this wall speech in Berlin?
On Friday, June 12, 1987, President and Mrs. Reagan were taken to the Reichstag, where they viewed the wall from a balcony. Reagan then made his speech at the Brandenburg Gate at 2 p.m. That afternoon, Reagan said, "We welcome change and openness, for we believe that freedom and security go together, that the advance of human liberty can only strengthen the cause of world peace. There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and the Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate, Mr. Gorbachev. Open this gate, Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall."
Why was East and West separated?
After the defeat of Germany in World War II, the country was divided between two global blocs in the East and West, a period known as the Division of Germany. The Cold War divided Germany between Western allies in the West and Soviets in the East.
What did pilots call the stealth fighter F-117?
The F-117's remarkable radar-defeating design features came at a price. However, the aircraft was aerodynamically unstable. In fact, many pilots reported that the Nighthawk was a surprisingly difficult plane to keep in the air. It took a quadruple redundant computerized fly-by-wire system just to get it off the ground. No wonder pilots called it the Wobblin' Goblin.
Was the stealth fighter F-117 easy to detect in the sky?
A number of cutting-edge design features helped make the F-117 difficult and sometimes virtually impossible to detect. The aircraft's unique angled shape was engineered to scatter 99% of radar emissions away from the source, while its wings and fuselage panels were coated with secret radar-absorbing materials, further enhancing the plane's invisibility.
When did the F-14 make its first flight?
The F-14 made its first flight nearly 50 years ago on December 21, 1970. The sleek, twin-tailored aircraft has been dubbed the Tomcat.
What did the F-14 serve as?
The F-14 had incredible flexibility. It served as the Navy's maritime air superiority fighter, fleet defense interceptor, and aerial reconnaissance platform. That's 3 very different roles in just one jet.
Which president took the oath of office aboard Air Force One?
Lyndon B. Johnson was inaugurated as the 36th President of the United States on Friday, November 22, 1963, aboard Air Force One at Love Field in Dallas, Texas, following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy earlier that day.
My question for President Lincoln is, how many presidents did this Air Force One serve?
This flying White House, tail number 27,000, served 7 U.S. presidents from 1973 to 2001, including Presidents Nixon, Carter, Ford, Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, and George W. Bush. For Ronald Reagan, this was the plane in which he handwrote many of his speeches, signed important legislation, and even officially started the Daytona Beach, Florida NASCAR race via phone. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks for the questions, and have a happy President's Day.
Hey guys, my name is Braden. As you know, I'm kind of a full-time traveler, and it took me a lot of work to find a piano, but I found a piano here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I'm at the university. Interesting fact, this university is the oldest university in all of Africa. So, here at this university, I want to play for you the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed this President's Day virtual event as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. We know you have so many choices, and we thank you for tuning in to us. We want to remind you, if you didn't even know, that since COVID started in March of 2020, we have brought to you over 50 virtual events through our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Reagan Foundation. And we have dozens and dozens more coming up in the upcoming months. Sometimes we're giving 2 or 3 a week. So to follow the events that we have, simply either go to our website, reaganlibrary.com/events, to see what schedule is upcoming, or if you subscribe to that YouTube channel, youtube.com/Reagan Foundation, you'll be notified every time a new event is uploaded. If you do check our website, we recommend checking it often because we're constantly updating it with new events. So before we wrap up, I just want to kind of give you a tease of what's to come. We want to thank all of you. We reached out on our social media channels and through our emails and asked people to send in photographs of family members and friends who are frontline workers, whether they're doctors or nurses or police officers or firemen, or maybe they're grocery store clerks or bank tellers, and they have to keep going to work every day. People who are saving lives and who are bringing food to our tables, and so that we could thank them and salute them for all that they're doing to keeping us safe in an active community while we're in various lockdown positions due to COVID. So coming up in just a second are those families' photos that we wanted to share with you. So again, thank you to all of those frontline workers. Thank you to those who keep us safe. Thank you to those who work in grocery stores. We really do appreciate it. Please, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and happy President's Day.
We come filled with pride and gratitude to honor George Washington, father of our country, knowing that because of what he did, we're free and we're Americans. 250 years after his birth, Washington's star shines brighter than ever. Our cause is noble, he said. It is the cause of mankind. Pursuit of liberty and justice under God is still the most inspiring, the most successful, the most revolutionary idea the world has ever known. Words alone cannot express how much we revere this giant for freedom. Yes, he is first in our hearts and will be first for all time. But as Abraham Lincoln said, to add brightness to the sun or glory to the name of Washington is impossible. Let none attempt it. Pronounce the name and leave it shining on. 85 years later, Calvin Coolidge would say, Washington's ways were the ways of truth. He built for eternity. His influence grows in action, in character. He stands alone. If one word could describe all this man was and all he meant, it might be indispensable. Had he not lived, perhaps some other great leader would have appeared to liberate the colonies and establish our republic. We'll never know. We know only that Washington was there, that he did fulfill this destiny, and that he did it with such skill and perfection, he seemed to be carrying out a divine plan for America. Never a passive leader, never an armchair general, he was always in front of his troops and his nation. He did more than live up to the standards of the time. He set them. Washington was gifted with the vision of the future. He dreamed America could be a great, prosperous, and peaceful nation stretching from ocean to ocean. He hoped the deliberations at Philadelphia would end with a declaration of our independence. He even designed and presented a drawing of the new American flag to Betsy Ross, 13 stripes, and a circle of white stars on a field of blue. When the war was going badly, his courage and leadership turned the tide of history our way. On our first Christmas as a nation, in 1776, he led his band of ragged citizen soldiers across the Delaware River through driving snow to a victory that saved the cause of American independence. Their route of march, it is said, was stained by bloody footprints, but their spirit did not fail. Their will could not be crushed. Washington kept them going, and with the help of France, they finally battled their way to Yorktown in the decisive victory that ended the war. After the Revolution, he wanted to return here to Mount Vernon, to be with his family, to farm, to hunt, to engage in commerce. But he loved his country, and his country needed him. The 13 former colonies were impoverished. They were bickering. They needed a constitution so that they could become a union of sovereign states joined to a central government. The American political experiment was new to all human experience, and the world expected us to fail. If Washington had not stepped forward again, first at the Constitutional Convention, then as our first elected president, we might well have failed. His feats were harvested from the seeds of exceptional character. He lacked higher education, but he pulled himself up with years of training and hard work. He was a man of deep faith who believed the pillars of society were religion, morality, and bonds of brotherhood between all citizens. It has been written that the most sublime figure in American history was George Washington on his knees in the snow at Valley Forge. He personified a people who knew it was not enough to depend on their own courage and goodness. They must also seek help from God, their Father and Preserver. Washington was so popular, he could have been king had he wanted that, but he had no hunger for personal power. His love was liberty, and his trust was in the people. He believed they're dependable and right-minded, and he believed that a leader's responsibility is to bring out their best qualities. Let us ask ourselves, are we keeping faith with his trust in us? The problems we face today don't require the kind of sacrifices Washington and his men made that Christmas night in the Delaware, but they do require us to give and sustain our best efforts, to believe in each other, to believe in the God who has blessed us and will help us to rebuild our country. George Washington and his generation of Americans met their challenge. We can, we must, and we will meet ours. To the students across America who are listening in today, If Washington seems much larger than life and makes you feel a little smaller, I'll let you in on a secret. He makes us all feel that way. But you do matter a lot. I'm sure he would tell you the important thing is to find your goal and go for it. Then if you fail, and he himself failed many times, pick yourselves up and try again. Remember, our problems are also our opportunities. You can take us to new frontiers in space, find medical cures for deadly diseases, discover technological breakthroughs, develop better ways to grow food, provide shelter, and produce energy. The world's hope is still America's future. America's future is in your dreams. Make them come true. The only limits are your imagination and your determination. The story is told that one night at dinner here at Mount Vernon, Lafayette said to Washington, "General, you Americans, even in war and desperate times, have a superb spirit. You're happy and you're confident. Why is it?" And Washington answered, "There is freedom, there is space for a man to be alone and think, and there are friends who owe each other nothing but affection." We still have that in America. As Americans, let us all rededicate ourselves to the ideals that George Washington set. Let us give of ourselves so that when our time is through, history may say of us what Thomas and Jefferson said of him. Their integrity was the most pure, and their justice the most inflexible we have ever known. They were, in every sense of the word, a wise and a great people. Well, I believe we still are. And because I believe in you, I believe we will be tomorrow. God bless America, and thank you very much.
Hello, thank you for joining us for our President's Day Arts and Crafts. We'll be making Abraham Lincoln and George Washington masks. You'll need disposable plates, popsicle sticks, scissors, glue, cotton balls, and the cutout templates from our website. First step, grab the disposable plates and begin to cut out the inner circle. Then get your glue and your hat cut out and glue the hat on the top of the plate. So flip your plate over and then get your hat and let's start gluing. For Abraham Lincoln, glue the black paper strips onto the bottom portion of the plate to create a beard. For George Washington, glue the cotton balls to the bottom of the plate. Finally, tape or glue the popsicle stick on the back side of the plate to hold the mask. If the glue doesn't work, just use tape. Let's see what you made.
Happy President's Day!